Good. How are you guys doing? Steve, all.
Nice to see some of your guys.
Yes.
On the Silver Trail yesterday. They're all fans.
Yeah.
Sam from Silver Sea Patrol,
Oh, yeah.
but he had some of the guys from this station. Down mine, 733. I just rode the tram for one. They had some fun stuff, but
Yeah.
you got fans in your guys.
It's good.
Yeah, that's good.
We got some great guys too. Sam's wants to fetch you.
Yeah. And he's good at smoking too.
You got 1 minute.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Everybody just move some of your stuff to that table.
Sure.
Max, in the way.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was messing on, right? Oh, earlier, yeah. I just know the class.
The thing about being gone 3 months was, I didn't really miss any snow.
No, you certainly did.
Like,
You're the reef.
no, I should be here if I stay put, it'll be for the snow.
And here it is.
First 10 days of January. What was it? Well, it's not,
Yeah.
2.5 inches 2 weeks ago today. It's the 2 week anniversary of the last time it's snowed.
Yeah.
So 2.5 inches.
I've been home for like 8 days or something. Or, I'm not sure, I don't know, 10 days.
It's out snowing again.
Are you going out again?
It's coming
I'll
out.
go over.
No.
Oh, no, we're done.
You're done.
No more filming.
Good.
You know the concept of Steamberg winter?
No,
Yeah. What's his first name? Jim Steenberg is a like an atmospheric scientist and weather researcher at the U. He wrote the Great Secrets of the Greatest Snow on Earth.
okay.
He's all over the place. You've probably been to a fireside chat by Jim Steenberg, even if you don't know that. He's got a great blog. Steenberg winter is when you have 100 inches of common sunny plot,
This is.
but it's before February
Some
16th.
gents?
And that's the,
So we got 5 days to get to Steenberg winter.
are we close enough?
Well,
I guess, come on, we got like 145 inches.
not we totally.
The
So,
last time I checked.
Hey. Oh, but you sent it to like. My website, something or other, and I had to get it got forwarded. So I'd love to help with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It's 4 o'clock though.
It's 4 o'clock, all right? I would like to, see, Elise. Elise said she would be joining us. Yes, there she is.
I'm here. I just have some weird lighting going on.
Certainly. Yes. You need a new complexion there. Okay, the town council meeting of, February 11th, 2026, for the town of Alta, to order. And our, first order of business is citizen input. Yes, sure.
Mark, hey. The last meeting, the council had a extended discussion on the quality of the minutes, that have been produced by, Ms. Clancy. And, during the discussion, both Ms. Clancy and the council acknowledged that there was a time-consuming effort, but the quality was, indeed very high and accurately reflected the both the tone, tenor, and consequence of the meetings. And it was remarked on by some councilmen that, well, maybe her time might be better applied to other things, and so she could just take a little time off the minutes and, apply them to, her other to-do list. Well, I would just note that having gone to the grammar request to both obtain town council minutes as well as planning commission meeting minutes and the expense in going through that. That Ms. Clancy has, had an exemplary contrast to that. And I think she should be urged to continue with the quality of her meeting minutes. As they've been produced the past few years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? No other citizen inputs? Okay, well, let's move on to the next item, which is oh, Mike is not here. So we won't move on to the next, all right, let's
Yeah, he's not, oh, he's here.
excuse me,
He's online.
is Mike online?
Mike's online.
Okay.
am.
Oh, good, all right.
How are you today? Well, thank you. It's nice to see something white falling out of the sky and accumulate on the ground. We got 8 inches today. We've got another maybe 3 to 7 tonight, maybe a little bit more tomorrow, and then it's going to clear up and be nice for the weekend. And I think we'll probably fill the place. So we're excited about that. We were doing okay until about last week, and then it's like everything dropped off the edge of the world. Everybody disappeared for some reason. I think the conditions had finally caught up, but it's been rather weak the last week that we went through. I had an opportunity to go meet with UDOT on February 5th. Highlighted with them some of the issues that we presented in our community meeting, talking about, the winter road. Slick Road was the #1 congestion problem in Little Cottonwood Canyon, followed by the main line closures was #2. We talked about that our parking reservation system had limits the number of vehicles coming in the canyon, and it increased carpooling and bus ridership. And we made the point that bus ridership is effective when it's simple, it's comfortable, it's convenient, and it takes people to where they want to go. And it works better for employees and those with lockers, maybe in the canyon. Doesn't work well for families and people with a lot of equipment and gear. And then we made the point that the roadside parking between entry 1 and entry 4 is impedes the flow of traffic, particularly when those vehicles turn and make illegal U-turns into the downcoming traffic. And then just the inequity of merging also impedes the flow of traffic. And then we suggested to them the following refinements. One was that UDOT enhances the snow removal capabilities in Little Cottonwood Canyon by creating a plow station in the town of Alta somewhere that can house at least a couple snow plows, maybe some salt and sand storage, and has some housing in it, apartments in it where people could stay during storm periods, so that we have trucks up here ready to go when it snows and the road starts to get slick, rather than the road starts to get slick and we make a phone call and it's 30 to 40 minutes before a truck gets up to Alta. We also suggested that there be a focus on keeping the main line open, particularly on the exit periods, and suggested that, maybe more frequent mitigation of the slide paths in the morning could be an option to accomplish that. And we pointed out that both of those two things, keeping a slick road and the mainline closures, were never addressed in UDOT's EIS. And there's nothing in the proposed solutions currently as proposed to address those. And we just encourage that they take that into consideration as they go forward with enhancements to improve transportation. And we encouraged them to implement a bus system that works and, takes people where they want to go. We talked about that a transit hub in the town of Alta, between the Alta Lodge and the Rustler. It seems to be a transit hub that doesn't take anybody where they want to go exactly, at least the bulk of the ridership. So we suggested that they return to servicing the bus stops as they did previously, all the bus stops in the town of Alta, there's direct service from the park and ride to Alta that doesn't go to Snowbird, at least 15-minute frequency. And we believe that that can be accomplished and would be more effective if they would build a 1,000-car parking structure somewhere near the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon. And then we had quite a lengthy discussion with them about tolling, and pointed out that parking reservations seem to be more effective at accomplishing what they're trying to accomplish. And they made the point that the only thing they really have control over is the road. The only lever they have to pull would be a tolling lever, unless they could work out an agreement with the ski areas in the town of Alta and the town of Brighton about how to manage traffic and maybe through reservations. They were open to having ongoing discussions on that regard. And so there's a possibility that some sort of agreement may be entered into down the road between the ski areas and UDOT, possibly the town of Alta, town of Brighton are in that too, that would allow maybe reservations to be used to manage the number of vehicles coming up the canyon rather than using tolling. So that door was opened as an opportunity to talk about that. Snowbird was in the meeting, and Dave Fields indicated that, he wouldn't be able to do that this next season. There were things that needed to be addressed and concerns he had, but he would be open to some sort of traffic management system in lieu of tolling. We took that as a win. So ongoing conversations will be had. We've trying to set up a time with UDOT, I think in the month of March, to start those type of discussions. Anyway, and then we just suggested they eliminate the illegal U-turns between entry 1 and 4 by extending a little concrete, median like they have below entry 1, and implementing a more equitable merge than zipper merges. UDOT's, they agreed in general with all of the observations about the issues that we brought up. And as they listened to our proposed refinements, we called them, of phase 1 transportation improvements, they had a willingness to consider them and to talk about them in greater detail. And they've indicated that they are willing to have those type of discussions, and particularly in regards to how to implement the bus service in Little Cottonwood Canyon. They pointed out that they are not they haven't operated bus systems before, and so they've relied a little bit on UTA as to what makes the most sense, and some of the design in the phase 1 improvements have come from UTA more than from relying on their guidance, and they were willing to look at other alternatives and a way to make it work better. So I felt it was a good starting point. I intend to kind of get this information out to the Alta community and to our employees, how the meeting went, and trying to see if UDOT has a call or a way for people to make comment or something on that. But that was encouraging. I felt that was a step, at least a minor step in hopefully the right direction down the road. It's there. So other than that, we're up and going, and we're looking forward to this pattern change, and hoping that we'll see a strong second half of the season. This weekend's about our halfway point as we look at for the amount of the length of the season that's there. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
Well, who were you meeting with?
Yeah, that
What
was
you
my
got?
question. Who is?
We messed with Devin, who came to the town council meeting, and we also had Josh Van Jura in the meeting, he was there also. So we had those meetings. We thought we'd start with them. We'll see how this goes, if the other opportunities to meet and discuss move forward. If not, we might have to climb the ladder a little bit.
Okay. Anything new on the trailhead restroom?
Oh, I could give you an update there. So we're continuing to push forward with that with the Forest Service. The final drawings, I think, for that will be submitted probably hopefully within the next week for a building permit, as well as to the Forest Service for their review. Should come next week. We should be able to present something to the town that's there. And so far, there hasn't been any showstoppers that have arisen to this point in time. It seems to be that it's moving forward in the right direction. I will be meeting with the Forest Service, let's see, a week from tomorrow to review all of our things we'd like to do NEPA review on this summer and projects we intend to do. And we'll be talking about that restroom at that point in time also to see where we're at.
Great. Yeah, our communication with the Forest Service representative has been very positive along these lines too. So good move. Anything else or let's see who else is out there. Luis and I expect Carolyn to show up shortly. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you for all your help.
All right, we're on the same page here. All right, discussion regarding special town council meeting regarding capital improvements planning and funding for Chris.
No,
I think we have the.
land use for,
Oh, discussion land use code update, Chris.
Sorry, I need to. Join the Zoom meeting. Oh. Well, I got 38% on the battery, so.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I cut this is mostly last month's slide deck. Which I cut down to half the size. So hopefully it'll be a little bit quicker. I don't know if Jen, I don't remember whether Jen mentioned in her staff meeting that, or her staff report, and I don't know if the council noticed, but we did. Sort of invert the typical structure of the agenda this month so that we can get through the substantive items and then turn to the sort of clerical or administrative stuff like approving minutes and, you know, asking questions about staff.
Yeah, the routine stuff like the mayor's report, the stuff that nobody really cares much about.
it's still in the middle. It's about the middle.
We talked about where to put the mayor's report, we figured we'd keep doing it. Oh. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so we are set to bring a handful of really pretty modest land use code updates that we have worked up or are in the process of working up to the planning commission next month. Craig and I talked about these on Friday and I confirmed I remember confirming Craig's sense that these are really pretty minor, almost ministerial changes. So they kind of barely indicate the need to get on the same page with the council, but we just have kind of a work track record of trying to bring these sorts of changes to the council for adoption. We've in the past couple of years started the process, the planning commission without a preview of the council, and in one case and it went badly. So maybe this is just kind of an exercise to develop muscle memory that this is the way we do this. The reason is that you guys are the final authority. You decide whether to change land use regulations or any town development regulations. It's a legislative act. So we don't want to get ahead of you. And I want to make sure you understand where we're going with these. So we have 3 code updates we're working on right now. The first one is truly clerical. It is simply a change to the text of Title 10 to change the reference to the section of state code that gives us our authority to regulate land use at the local level. So that the state recodified that section of state code in a special session in November. We need to update those references. So this is the most simple and straightforward one. There's no possible way for this to be controversial. Good. The next one, I guess the second and third updates I'll preface by saying that we noticed some issues with our the process that we provide in the town code for how property owners of the public can propose land amendments to land use regulations to the town. This is somewhat along those lines. This kind of came up in working with the Shallow Shaft on their proposal to amend the zoning to do a project that's not currently allowed under the zoning. The zoning map needs to reflect all the separate zoning districts of the town, and it needs to indicate the property owners what zone they're in. And that map needs to be adopted by the council. Based on the table of contents of town code, the subzones of the base facility zone are not separate zoning districts, but there are different regulations that apply within those subzones. So we are proposing to update the zoning map. This is the zoning map that's currently on the website. And it does not reflect subzones A, B, and C. The code simply refers to the sort of legal name or business name associated with those properties. And we're gonna bring an overlay to the zoning map, or a sort of just a different graphic scheme to indicate which of those subzones are where on the zoning map. And then we'll ask you to apply it, and then it is a legal and defensible zoning map that cannot be argued with. Questions? The third one is a little bit more nuanced. It's maybe the one that I'm least confident you would understand, but it's really a pretty straightforward matter. We adopted a change to our section 110.18, which is the section that governs again how the public can propose amendments, or the process that we go through to consider and adopt amendments to our land use regulations. We noticed in so doing, and in working with the Shallow Shaft on their proposed text amendment to the zoning ordinance, that in the base facility zone, which is zoning district there, under how in the base facility zone you go about proposing zoning change. And that is because there's simply no petition to rezone language in the base facility zone ordinance like there is in the other zones. We don't think there's a reason for that. It's not like you can't petition to rezone if you're in the base facility zone. So we're proposing to take those sections out of the individual zoning districts and just move them up the table of contents into the first chapter of the land use title in the code, so that they apply throughout the rest of the code section. It's more common, it's a more common way to provide those, to provide that process in your local code and ordinance, and we just wanna make it easier to read and make it easier to apply at the staff level. Does that make enough sense?
Yeah, that sounds logical.
Okay, I don't think any of these are controversial. Again, you are the final decision makers, so we wanted to let you know that coming, so that hopefully we can be efficient. We have a recommendation from the planning commission and final text.
But it's going to them first anyway, right? We will come here.
Just the one comment, Chris, which I prefer English to numbers.
Yeah.
And if we can, on the first one, which is basically say be compliant with the current code, could we actually write it that way so that every time the code changes, we don't have to bring it back to the town council? I'm not
Yes,
asking you to answer this now.
Yeah.
Just check with Cameron or whatever.
right, we talked about that.
Oh, you did already.
Yeah, no, you and I talked, I remember talking about that with you on Friday. And I didn't pass along that question, but it's a good one. Cause we would love to mitigate the need to do this in the future. We do make reference to the building code. We don't typically explicitly adopt, we make reference to the current edition. So anyway, that's something that we can talk about with legal counsel.
Yeah. If we can't do it, we can't do it, but if we can,
Let's
makes
make
it easier.
Yeah.
I refute your statement that you prefer words to numbers.
That's not quite that questionable.
So anyways, thank you for the time. We do have a list of other amendments that I'd like to explore that kind of go up the chain in terms of being less housekeeping and more actual policy policy considerations that presumably take more time, generate more input, maybe have more iterations and alternatives. So it's just sort of walking before you run. So we'll get a planning commission meeting in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today. We'll introduce these at that meeting. We're I anticipate having a public hearing in the February planning commission meeting. We may hold off until March, but anyways, we are preparing to have a public hearing in February in case it's so anodyne and non-controversial that there's no reason to have another meeting. And then we'll bring it to the council when it makes sense to do so.
That's good.
We're in final approval. Okay.
Okay, you're gonna go on to,
Yes,
good.
okay. Boy, I probably saved the last slide. I need to show the last slide there. We should touch the home. Okay, so we scheduled, thank you for participating in our time to schedule a special meeting. We can begin to increase public engagement in and awareness of our need to fund major capital projects. We've been talking about this, about the need to get the public involved since we've been talking about the need to make capital improvements. For obvious reasons, we've identified some major long overdue capital improvements. Our current revenues can't fund all the improvements. We've discussed issuing bonds as a likely path to funding certainly a new building and potentially improvements to the water and sewer systems. So the goal, but we haven't made decisions. So the goal of beginning to increase public awareness via a special meeting in March would be to just give the public an opportunity to come learn and ask questions and learn about where we are in the process. I created a little slide deck here, which I did not include in the packet. I apologize about that. I discussed it with Craig yesterday, and our discussion revealed a little bit of a gap in our sense, each of our sense of where we are in the process. So I want to spend this time that we have on the agenda today just talking about a couple key components of the process, especially with respect to designing a new building, just to make sure, just to see if we are enough on the same page about the progress we've made and what remains to be done to make this meeting a month from today prudent and worthwhile.
The public.
Yeah, public meeting.
Yeah.
So so I kind of rushed through a reintroduction to this topic last month in the council meeting. I had some slides, most of which was kind of old news for the council. The UDOT team was like sort of sitting behind me, and I was just save time for that. What ended up being a great discussion with UDOT about their transit planning. Within that slide deck was a little Gantt chart that I've produced that I've not really vetted with the council. I did provide this. It's been posted on our website for a little while. This is a conceptual facility placement timeline that shows tasks and milestones really over the next 3 years, beginning January 1 of 2026, that I think represents a reasonable approach to designing, funding, and eventually building a new building.
I love this slide.
Me too.
I'm really hip on this slide.
And a significant milestone is Maury retires.
Yeah, sorry,
Maybe,
I'll take that off. That was on the screen, but, sorry about that.
Well, yeah. Perhaps we can find ways to prevent him from ever retiring.
Yeah, right, move that to the
Well,
right.
sorry, I should take it off, but I know that. When we talk about the future of the AMO, we talk about how dependent it is on having a modern facility to provide police services and Mike's future is future of the AMO is heavily dependent on Mike's future, and so anyways, there's some kind of.
Well, in all seriousness too, though, Chris, the succession plan is really critical to ensuring that the town can continue to do what the AMO can continue to do what it does.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, central to the entire town's purpose, so.
So a couple things that I'll kind of get into a little bit more that come up on the slide. I anticipate a multi-phase design. There are a number of ways to go about designing a big, 10 plus thousand square foot essentially commercial facility with multiple functions in a complex environment, but one way is to do like a 30, 60, 90 process, and those can be they can be separate design contracts, they can be part of one design contract. But it's gonna take a while. And the point of your conversation where Craig, where I detected a difference in perspective yesterday was where we talked about the timing of it. We're going to issue a GO bond to fund a building. We have to decide. The council has to pass a resolution to put a bond, essentially a ballot measure on the ballot for the fall by August 15th. So this year that might be like a couple days after a truth and taxation hearing. Which sounds like a fun week, but so anyway, you can see how that moving those two little orange blocks for a bond campaign and council bond decision to the left would certainly add some pressure to the 2026 calendar year.
But I'd like us to try, I mean, it sounds like you're leaning in that direction some to try and move that way.
Well,
Well, I think what he's saying is, I was leaning that
yeah,
direction.
Greg, that's what Greg was thinking. So. Anyway, there are a lot of things we have to do in the design process. One of the complicating factors is this notion of working with UDOT with, partnering is maybe a strong word, but UDOT, we've discussed internally, and we've been in some preliminary discussions with UDOT about the notion of UDOT participating in the design process, and then eventually, pending the outcome of that, the construction of a new building. So that they can meet some of those needs that the general manager was describing a moment ago. This facility is how they meet those needs in the canyon for the time being, and there could be some upside to the town. That participation could entail some time to set up. Anyway, I wanted to just sort of illustrate some of the things that take place in a three-phase design. I think we need at least a 30%, but is maybe as much as a 60% design to know enough about the cost of the building.
Yeah.
And to be able to illustrate it well enough to do a bond election. That is essentially what was recommended to us by Zions Bank.
Yeah, let me just interject, because we had part of this conversation, so everybody should hear it. I think there's, from my perspective, the essential part of doing a bond issuance is that we get public support. That has to do with how we relate to the community, how we explain it to them, how much time, I don't know if that's gonna take, 3 months or a year and a half. But the actual design itself, all that does is give you the total amount of money that you have to spend on the building. It's always better to have better estimates, but actually, if you look at our preliminary estimates, there's not that much difference. Between
the alternatives.
the alternatives.
Yeah.
And
And as I've said many times, the only time you actually know what it costs is after you finished it. And so I mean. If it's important to convincing the town that we need the money. Then yes, we have to be further along the design process, but I'm sort of questioning. It's gonna be a lot of money any way you look at it, and I'm sort of questioning that, or at least would like to test that to see how far we can get with the town this year.
Well, that's really what you're putting out there for next month anyway. It's a first opportunity to have that engagement. And I agree, it's pretty clutch. So I think that'll be really helpful, just in keeping this moving. One of the reasons I think it's important to try and do what you have been trying to do. And if we can stay on a trajectory to possibly put something out this November, Chris, is I think the convergence of opportunity here with potentially UDOT.
Yeah.
And things that are gonna be in motion that are gonna happen in the canyon. Where if we let it slip a year or worse too, we lose a window that could be really economic and fortuitous. And none of that's high pressure. I just think that's why I think we need to stay, we have to get on gas, but I think we need to stay, in the passing lane or whatever, some terrible metaphor.
Yeah.
So I'd like to put you on the spot a little bit, and I apologize to Carolyn for
That's okay, I was in the meeting the whole time.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, sorry, and I tried to speak, but I heard everything.
Well, okay. So.
It's 7 more inches of snow tonight, says mom.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is like big time on the spot in a public meeting for you to ask you this question, but
Throw it out there.
this is the kind of foundation that I think we need to have to make a meeting worthwhile. Like, I don't think we wanna go into a meeting 4 weeks from today and have debate about it or.
No.
So how comfortable are you with like what a general obligation bond is and the likelihood that it's our strongest option to fund a new building?
I don't see another way that doesn't put a substantial burden on the property tax. That answer your question?
And so
Well,
the general
okay,
obligation bond
yeah.
is bond approved by the voters. Issued against property taxes that then goes directly on the tax bill. So that what you mean is that you don't see an alternative to that?
No, and
Okay.
that was my point about, 9.3, 9.9. I mean, in that level of variance, that doesn't all have to be on the bond. But to get from 0 to 9, we're gonna have to do a bond. There's just, I don't see another way around it.
And I'll add to that, because I am a word guy, not a number guy. So I think the answer is yes. And that's what we should explore now. And we're confident that that's the best way forward to do what we want to do within the time window we're hoping to do it.
Is that a question?
No,
You think we should move in that direction because
it's the
we
best,
haven't
it's the
discovered?
best option. And we have spent time exploring this with outside expertise and inside of the town during retreats. And we still land back on that is the lifespan.
It's why I'm recommending citizen committee. The reason is because this is pretty obvious. And there's not a lot of choice here. So the only choice is kick down the road so we don't have to make a decision. But there's not a lot of different financing options. And if we get a decent citizen committee with people, and there are many people around here that have a lot of expertise in finance, I think we can quickly get to, this is what we have to do. And if we get there quickly, then acting quickly on it, I don't expect it to change the execution schedule, but the bond thing can actually be ahead of the execution schedule.
And Chris, I think what would be also beneficial to the town population in that opportunity to have dialogue is marrying this as what the town, the staff and the legislative body thinks is the best way to move forward with the requirements that we've established over the last couple of years with some in-depth retreats and reinforcing of what those priorities are. Vis-a-vis this building and the AMO and compliance with ADA and those things. You know, all that stuff to build on what Craig is saying too, I think we as a town council are in a really good position right now with a good town council, a great staff and these opportunities. And if we don't take the action now, we're gonna leave a legacy problem for 10 years from now, and that's irresponsible. And we put the requirements in front of the public, let them come in, and Mary, this was the best way to meet those requirements with some good timing, and I think we can start getting buy-in from the town. And get input to help course correct on things that the citizens tell us they want. Okay, I think it all sounds good. That's a better summary. Just sounds good to me.
Well, you think we should move faster? Yeah.
I don't think we should move faster. I think we should have this first engagement, and what we'll get from that is a read on appetite as well.
Ready to move.
Yep, and we don't have to have all the answers. Bring the public in. We've got a lot of answers, but we haven't refined them or selected them. I think.
I'm a little opposite, I think, from, I actually think that August 2027 is more realistic. I am very supportive of a general obligation bond. But I mean, I've been on the council long enough to know that public engagement is not easy to do in this town. We're not going to get it from one meeting in March. We're going to need to also do more meetings in the summertime because there's different types of residents and different voters that are here at different times. I'm really hopeful that we get a lot of people attending this meeting in March, but I don't know if we will. And I don't know if a couple people attending a meeting is going to give us enough sense of what the voters are going to want to do. And it's hard to educate people. I mean, that sometimes people act like the town has never done anything to educate about things that we've been working on. And it's not true. We try, we put out newsletters, we put things out, but sometimes people just aren't paying attention. And so I think this is going to take a lot of our time to educate everybody on why we need these buildings, why we need to fund it the way we do. And I think it's going to pay off to take that time to do that instead of rushing this to August of 2026. Because I don't think we're going to be there with educating everybody that quickly.
So Elise, those are really great points. And as always, I love to defer to your tenure. Can we say that there's no need to close a door? Let's have some engagement. And if, as we look at it, we realize, we're never going to get there by August, 6 months from now, we kick it down to 27.
And we could do that. I just want everyone to realize that this is going to take a lot of, this is a campaign. This is a bond campaign. This isn't something that's going to be simple as us holding a quick little vote. I mean, we are going to have to put the time out to educate everybody. We've done better over the last handful of years about educating people on the town budget and being more transparent about stuff, but it's still very confusing for people. It's not something that people will willingly pay attention to. And then I've said this before in meetings, but in March, we're going to get a variety of different people attending our meeting. And you as a council member will have to weigh things that how their perspective. We're going to have people that attend the meeting that don't live in the town of Alta and don't vote. We're going to have people at the meeting that are residents. And you're going to have to decide people's opinions about how the town should look and the buildings that we build and what we put, how that's all going to weigh in on everything. Because it's going to be hard having people voicing their opinions from the valley who recreate here versus our residents who are going to be signing and voting off on a bond campaign. So it's not that simple sometimes. And we can still try for August of 2026. But I just want everyone to recognize that it's going to take a lot of meetings and a lot of work. We're not going to accomplish this in 1 or 2 meetings. And that's why I'm just kind of like wondering if we're just rushing it too much by trying to do it this summer. And also just the staff, this is going to be a lot of work. And I don't want them to feel that we're going to have to just rush this through. And I see kind of we're on Chris's timeline about trying to get some of the design press forward a little bit, making some decisions, because we don't want to put a bond campaign out there if we aren't going to know for sure about what's going in the buildings and what the buildings are going to look like. Because we need to, if we're going to ask for money and have our voters vote for that, we need to be really confident about what we're doing with it and what we're going to be building. And that might take us some time. So that's all I just was weighing in on.
No, it's great management of expectations. I think that's really, really good context.
So I think maybe, let me summarize what I've heard about our process regardless of the public meeting, which is that we'll pursue the design process. And with an eye towards getting far enough along for a possible bond campaign fall of 27. But if in pursuing the design process, we gain confidence that we will be far enough along in what this building is going to be and what it's going to cost by this fall. I think we want to know what the building is going to be and what it's likely to cost, and just I'm going to be more confident in talking to people the further along we are in this.
Yeah.
We'll pursue the design process, now, and well, with an eye towards whether it's feasible to do it a year early.
Seems like you have to have some like reasonable budget in mind, otherwise you're gonna end up with that like.
Yeah.
Creature of the palace, that was originally
Right. I mean,
proposed.
I've heard stories of debt issued prior to really knowing what the project is, and it goes awry, and it leads you to make irrational decisions that you regret. Because, well, geez, we got $10 million in the bank, or we got $1 million in the bank. I mean, this is a big number for a very small community. It's pretty,
Yeah.
an outsized tax base for a couple hundred people, but
Oh, yeah.
so.
Just,
Because ultimately, it's gonna come down to a vote. It's a real vote.
Yes.
And so if everybody votes after we've sort of prepped them as best we can, and you open it up for dialogue and discussion and input, so you will adjust things.
Yeah.
If everybody votes against it, then the people have voted. That's the great thing about democracies, in my opinion.
There's a certain percentage of the voters need to vote.
That's a majority. I mean, well,
No,
like
I meant
or
like,
something.
no,
I don't know.
so there are 100 people registered to vote in the town of Alta.
Yeah.
It's hard to get people to vote, period, it's hard to
Yeah.
get people to vote
Yeah.
on the off cycle.
Well, exactly.
So
Exactly.
if you were
Yes.
issuing this special bond, is there a law that we should know about that says that 20% of those 100 people need to vote?
I don't know. I don't remember that from the Zionist Bank presentation.
I don't think they didn't cover that, but we
Kevin might be able to answer that.
make that man over there on the right hand of the screen say something.
I'm scrambling to look it up because I don't remember specifically. I think it's the majority of votes cast, but I'll double check and let you know.
Alright,
So if it's 10 people and you get 6 voters, I mean, I wouldn't feel great.
No, I know,
But-
so
but,
it's,
I mean-
but it can really matter when there's only a small
Yeah.
segment of voters, so if you rile people up in either direction,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a fair representation.
No, and I mean, it goes back to what Elisa's saying, like, this time is actually part of our friend as well as our enemy. Because we don't want to lose our opportunities, but we need to take the time to get everybody up to speed
On board.
who wants to be.
Yeah.
Or chooses to.
yeah,
do you think you have enough input on this now?
Well, on this specific,
Yeah, go ahead.
let me make just one other comment. Elise, I think, I completely understand your perspective and think that it's not unlikely that it will have to be kicked back. What I did want to emphasize, because I've raised it several times, is the importance of why I think the Citizens Committee is so important. What I would hope is that if we get the right Citizens Committee, that a lot of the education work would actually be done by that group, not by us directly. And because I think there's not a whole lot of room for choice in here, I think that's not unlikely to happen. Now, I may be completely overly optimistic about that. But I do think it's important that if we're going into the March meeting, that we decide, and maybe that means we have to do it today, or maybe it means we have, to, do it by email or something later. I do think it's important that we decide whether we're going to have a citizens committee and how we might actually use them. Because I think that what I've found is that if we have a bunch of citizens saying the same thing that we're saying, it dramatically increases the probability that it's gonna get heard.
Well, why don't we just bring that up at this meeting next month, that open that door to the citizenry?
But we gotta get some candidates who are willing to do it.
Well, I think that's our first opportunity as a public meeting to
Yeah.
say, you people that have shown interest, one, would you be willing to be on the citizen committee? And two, other people that you would recommend or that you could spread the word to, and we get everybody working for us as well. I think it doesn't change Elise's valid.
No,
point. We're not gonna get a huge turnout, but we can start building that base, and maybe by April, May, we've got a citizen committee.
Yeah.
By the end of ski season.
Yeah.
So maybe it could be, they can make a schedule for the next
It
one.
also addresses it's a really great point that Elise brings up too. It's like you get different humans at different times of year around here. So for us.
Okay,
Are we
so
working with ACE for that meeting?
I haven't contemplated it, I mean.
Because it is interesting when you think about in my tenure here, the only thing that got like a bunch of people here was ALS.
Yes.
And so it is really interesting when you are trying to educate the public about something and what gets emotional responses from people.
Sure.
And they represent our community, and so it seems like we're amiss if we don't at least have them help us with advertisement and engagement, and people can decide how to engage or not engage after that. It continues our partnership with the ACE and the building, et cetera.
I know Sarah's expressed an interest to at least follow along and most likely participate.
Well, she'll at least put it out on her calendar, so
Yeah.
people know, which I think accomplishes 40% of what you tried to do too. And
Yeah.
I think that's, again, I think if we can just start getting the word out, and do you feel like we could have that meeting now at this point based on the discussion we've had?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Let me just talk through a couple more things. So I don't think that we need to, the key message that I wanted to chat with you all about was that likelihood of a bond, and we don't wanna have that discussion in a town hall we advertise and recruit participation in without having had the discussion. So I'm glad for that. We've scheduled it for March 11th. We're anticipating a 1-hour council meeting next month, which, sounds great to me. So we would do this at 5 p.m. kind of, almost 4 weeks from right now at Our Lady. So we would do it at Our Lady. Full agenda, we have like a couple of presentations. And then open it up for Q&A. We are working on some kind of PR collateral. I'm sure we'll do special newsletters and social media posts. Molly has worked up a flyer that we can post around town and maybe like distribute to property managers and however else it needs to get onto people's scoreboards. And a fact sheet. We're working on like a fact sheet that we can just hand out at the meeting. I would like, because we're on an expedited timeline here, to ask you to work with me, like via email, to provide feedback on that material so that we're not like getting ahead of you on the messaging. So that's one request I would make. Is that we we communicate over the next like 4 or 5 business days about that stuff, so that we can go live like by a week from today at the very latest, so that we've got 3 weeks to get people to show up. Another special request I thought of is, can we each commit to bringing a couple of individuals, bonus if they're taxpayers and or voters or like census residents.
I'm gonna drag a couple people.
Okay, nice, yeah. So I think that would make it worthwhile, I think, getting people in the room.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, well, I'll commit to that,
Okay,
both of
Awesome.
those.
okay. Well, great, then I feel like we should go ahead in that case.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. If you've got confidence, then I do.
Okay. I prepared this information, so it was.
These are the options. I was gonna-
747.
All right, what is that?
Where's the east wing of the streets
Oh.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you.
That was great, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks. And it's really important, and it was a great way to, front load it on the schedule today too. Thanks for
Yeah.
doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is discussion of possible action to adopt resolution 2026-R-2, confirming appointment of budget committee member. Now that is, okay,
We talked about that last one.
but we have to pass this resolution, I
Yeah.
believe, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And so I'll open after the discussion. This will take a roll call vote.
Yes.
And the member we're appointing is,
Greg Highmark.
right. All right,
Great. We need a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution 2026-R-2 to confirm the appointment of budget committee member.
I second.
okay. Any further discussion?
Roll call,
Yes.
Councilmember Highmark.
I think I should abstain.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Schilling.
Yes.
Councilmember Ansel. Yes. And Mayor Burke.
Yes. Okay, passes unanimous.
Congratulations, Craig.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Unpaid job.
You're not a word guy.
Okay.
Roll call.
When in doubt. Discussion of fraud risk assessment. Jen, are you gonna do this?
I was going to, yes. I think Brooke
Okay,
has a
sure.
slide to pull up for me.
Okay,
So the fraud risk assessment, this is something that the auditors have requested that we present to the council. This is a tool that was developed by the state auditor. And so I have before us, and this was included in the packet, so hopefully you kind of reviewed it. But this is basically the tool. It's asked for a series of questions. It's based on there's policies in here. There's the MC in the third column over. What that stands for is mitigating factor or a mitigating condition. So when you're in a small municipality such as ourselves, you may not always have different people that can do each and every step in the process of, say, receiving funds or making a deposit or doing like your cash receiving processes and stuff. And so what the mitigating factor is just another factor on top of that allows for transparency and mainly it's documentation. So we have a number, as you can see, of mitigating conditions that we've put in place. And those are things that I've worked with Steve and with our auditors on to make sure that we're kind of doing the best that we can in those situations where we don't always have different people to do different functions. I wasn't planning on going through this list. You know, we have the score is actually on the first page, and we're right in the middle on our score. So, yes, we could do a couple things that would increase our score. I think with our new employee handbook, we'll probably get some policies that they have suggested that we don't currently have in place. So our score is likely to increase in the next couple years. But we're doing okay. And this is mostly just, the purpose of me preparing this report is to share with the council where we are on these items. Are there any specific questions?
well, my question to you is, are you personally concerned about fraud risk here?
Am I personally concerned?
Yeah,
No, yes, I am concerned that it could happen. And, I put where I think about this stuff is I actually want to protect the employees, right, from being accused of fraud. So by having these tools in place, we have a great defense and a process if anyone was ever to say, oh, well, or make an accusation or something like that, I guess.
What's council have to say about that with an S, not a C, council?
Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, I think the steps on the fraud risk assessment are pretty clear, and I don't have any concerns. I think the town's procedures and handling are right in line with where they should be. There are a couple of things that are some pretty minor adjustments, I think, that would give us a pretty good increased score, like Jen has mentioned, and we're actually working on that to get it done. So I think we're where we need to be, and frankly, this is lower. The score, the higher the score, the better it is, right? And so I have seen significantly lower scores, meaning significantly higher risk from other municipalities, particularly, municipalities with smaller staff, because everybody has a different job and there's some crossover. I've always been impressed with Alta's staff and their conscientiousness in not just complying with what the letter of the law is, but also looking at, hey, what are the appearances? We want to make sure that this is transparent and upfront so that everyone can understand. And so I don't see any risk here.
It's been a while since I dove into this, Jim, but in my treasurer role, I went into a fair bit of detail. I think for the size of our town and the size of our staff, we actually do exceptionally well on this. But I actually have a question, which is, does it matter? And what I mean by that is, with some types of things like this, you get lower insurance rates if you have higher scores, or you get something from the state if you have higher scores. Does this have any economic impact on us? In other words, should we try to get our score higher, which I think we could do with some small things, if it's going to affect us, save us money somehow?
I don't believe that this will have any effect on that type of situation. No. I think this is just, we're doing this in a public meeting. We're sharing our results with the public. We're disclosing, what policies and procedures we do or don't have that the council has adopted. And so, if something were to happen, I can just see this being kind of a, like a PR thing, and say, oh, well, you knew better and you chose not to take those extra steps. I think we've done we're very well covered. We have mitigating controls, or we have a process in place for everything. There's a couple where we don't, but I don't really see those as creating these undue risks for us.
No, and I agree, because what this does is it acknowledges areas that are either gray or there's overlap. And we're acknowledging it in writing, and that's the appropriate thing to do.
Mhm.
It's like, this is what we see as risk, and we've acknowledged it, and as I too have great faith in the town staff.
To Craig's point, so we fall in the moderate risk category and we scored 310. So we're 6 points away from being in the low risk category. And there's like a couple of these check boxes underneath, like 2, if we adopted something, we could get into the low risk category with ease. Like, we just need one more bit.
Yeah, but I think
So-
Jen already stated, we're moving that direction.
Yeah,
Right,
we have a
just some
couple
adjustments.
things that we're working on that will increase our
Yeah.
score here, I think, either next year or the year after. Most likely next
I mean,
year.
there's some stuff you can never get, like, does the entity promote a fraud hotline? I don't think we need that.
I think we should change that
20
24.
points.
That's the easiest one to do,
Really?
because I don't think anybody will ever use it. I'm serious, you create one, their phone number, and
It's called an Alpha
somebody else
Central.
can answer it.
It's called an Alpha Central.
Yeah,
Man,
maybe that's-
24/7. Anyway,
Okay,
thanks.
we resolved on that. If we improve our score, does it lower our insurance?
No, it has nothing to do with insurance.
This is a compliance government stuff, I don't think.
Okay. All right, next item is the mayor's report. I'm gonna take a poll here. There are certain events that are worldwide that we can probably place ourselves where we learned about that event. Okay, and you can information. For me, the earliest one, and I suspect nobody else in this room remembers this or where they were, was the end of World War II.
You're right. I know. Yeah, no.
It got you there. How many people could place themselves when they learned about the Challenger accident?
I can, know exactly what year was it? 86. Yeah, earlier. January of
Because
86.
40 years ago,
Well,
last.
Chris McCall, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay, so I last month I mentioned that I would talk about that as part of my report, but before I get to that, mayor's report is welcome to winter finally. The mad dash 45-day legislative session is underway with more than 500 bills introduced at the outset. I've been attending the legislative policy committee meetings that are hosted by the League of Cities and Towns, which is excellent. And we have our lobbyist Shelley, who's actually up there now, who is going to join us a little bit later. I think of her as our watchdog and ready to be turned into our attack dog. Okay. I went to the Council of Governments with all the mayors of the region on January 15th, and I signed us up to host a conclave, this conclave in July. And many enjoy coming up here in the wildflower season. It's kind of like a paid vacation. You get up to come up here. I hope we could give them a tour of the recent archaeological findings with a qualified archaeologist. I think that'd be really cool to see these things in motion. Okay, now on to the astronomy report. Last month I said I would talk about this is really more space travel. That's the wrong one. Yeah, there's more space travel than the astronomy chart. So here's a picture of the space shuttle. The big kind of I don't know what color that is. The brown thing at the top is the huge external tank, which has liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen in it, which are burned in the engines that you see at the very bottom. Right down there, there are 3 of them. Those engines have about a 6-foot diameter mouth. The 2 white things on the side are the solid rocket boosters. And what happens first is, well, let's start it. Brooke, and we'll stop it before we lift off.
Rocket booster engine gimbal now underway. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We hit.
Oh, sorry. That's okay.
Main engine start. 4, 3.
Stop. Pause rather. Okay, so these 3 engines at the bottom are now burning. Okay, you don't see anything coming out of them. Why not? Because it's steam. They're burning hydrogen and oxygen. They're making water. That's what's coming out of the bottom. It's 1,000-degree water, but that's what it is.
And that's what you want.
And that's what you want. And in the 4 seconds after those engines are started, and we're gonna start something else, the computers are verifying that everything's running properly. Okay. And there's also another interesting phenomenon. And you see this, here's the gantry, and over here is the shuttle mounted on the gantry, and the rocket engines are down where my elbow is. When it starts up, when those rocket engines start up, it actually bends the gantry over. And then it pops back. It takes 4 seconds to get it back to be vertical again. And at that point, we light up the solid rocket boosters. And once they're lit, they are not gonna turn off until they're burned out. So let's proceed.
One, and lift off. On the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Three engines, really normally, three the fuel cells, three good APUs.
Is that what the transition coming from the other show?
No, it's a guy on the ground talking. And he's talking to a script. I mean,
So the 25th Space Shuttle mission is now on the way after more delays than NASA cares to count. This morning, it looked as though they were not going to be able to get off.
okay. And that's what happened. All right. Well, what did happen? It was a failure in the solid rocket motors, as probably everybody knows. Solid rocket motors were made right here in Utah, up in the Brigham City area, by Thiokol at the time. And they're built in segments that are kind of this shape. And they fit together like so. Now, there's a subscale model because the real ones take the whole railroad car to carry them. Okay, and they are sealed with an O-ring that goes around here. And there are actually 3 O-rings, and then they slip together, and the O-ring is supposed to keep everything in place. Before they launch, the manufacturers of the solid rocket motors said, we have never tested these motors at this temperature, ever. Okay, and so we can't tell you that they're gonna work. And so we would advise that you not do it outside the test range. And the management at NASA Marshall Space Center in Huntsville, Alabama said, no, we're gonna fly it anyway. And what happened is shown in this little picture here, that what is that it leaked out between the 2 segments, and where the arrow is where it's leaking out. Once that fire got to that liquid oxygen tank, it was all over. Okay, how was this discovered? Well, NASA creates in these circumstances a failure review board. And on the failure review board was a guy named Richard Feynman, was kind of an interesting character. Okay, Feynman, here's the background on Feynman. He, in his 20s, was recruited into the Manhattan Project of Los Alamos. And there, he went around in the evenings and everything is, super secret, locked up. He went around and undid the padlocks. Okay, and he did it by guessing the combination. How can you do that? Okay, well, some of the padlocks still had their factory combination, so those were easy to guess. And then you say, well, what numbers are really easy for people to remember? Well, start with, in this group, 5. 3.14119. Okay, well, I'll just put that in as my combination. So he could get a handful of locks undone in the and of course it drove the security people crazy. But that was kind of Feynman's modus operandi. When he was subsequently physics professor at Caltech, and to continue with this kind of mode of operation, he would in the evenings play bongo drums at a topless bar in Pasadena. So he definitely was an unconventional fellow. So during the hearings, he had a glass of ice water and he took an O-ring and he dipped it into the ice water and said, I think this might have something to do with the problem. Because then he, clamped it a little bit and showed that it wouldn't rebound. And indeed, that was the problem. That was the problem. So out of that came a rather simple mantra. And it was, let me get this right first. Test as you fly, and fly as your test. Okay, 8 words. And it seems, what does all that mean? It means that before you undertake something that's in a new environment, you test things exactly as you're going to use them. You could probably identify that with an operations kind of guy you are. You test it in the environment you expect. And then fly as you test is the second part, which means that after you've tested it, don't deviate from how you tested it. That makes sense? Very good lessons. Very good lessons. Very good lessons. So how does that apply to current situation? Well, let's say for just picking something at random, you're an agency that's never run a transit system before. Okay, so what should you do? You better test it in the environment that you're going to expect it to play in. And then, fly as you test after that. Okay. Our next meeting will be March 11th, 4 p.m. And on that date, the amount of daylight is going to be increasing about 2 3/4 minutes a day, about 20 minutes a week. And you really notice it. It's coming back fast.
Mayor,
Yes,
we would like to do Shelley Trisher next, if that's
okay. On Shelley.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I have been your attack dog at least once this session. It worked out very well.
Good.
On the WUI bill. But
Yes.
that's another story. I thought I'd talk a little bit about the legislature. You all know the legislature is very Republican. It's 14, there are only 14 Democrats in the 75 members of the House and only 6 Democrats in the 29 members of the Senate. And so the Republicans are a supermajority. Of those, though, you do have one Democrat as your representative in the House. His name is John Arthur. He replaced Galen Benyon, who became the mayor of Cottonwood Heights. He's a 6th grade teacher, which I think is a hero, teaching that age group. And in Rose Park, the Rose Park section of Salt Lake City, he's very smart and has already helped us with a complicated parliamentary maneuver in a committee on the WUI bill. What he lacks in power, your senator makes up in, and that it makes up for, and that your senator is Kirk Cullimore, Senator Kirk Cullimore. He's the Senate Majority Leader, which is the second in power in the Senate. And he's the apparent next president of the Senate. A really nice guy. You may have heard of him. You've probably heard his name in news reports and things like that. So anyway, that's some background. Today at noon was halfway in time, but not halfway at work. I don't know how many bills they've passed. Not very many. Although they have managed to pass a bill adding 2 members to the state Supreme Court. It's now 7 members instead of 5. And they've spent a lot of time talking about transgender treatments for children under 18, though those bills haven't passed all the way through the process yet. I think they will, but they haven't yet. They do that every year. They come up with something to address transgender rights, and we have protests and not riots exactly, but protests. Cities and towns are political subdivisions and creations of the state, and the legislature never forgets that. The League of Cities and Towns does a good job of asserting their autonomy, but every year the legislature makes changes that the town has to adjust to after that, like you just did earlier in this meeting with the changes made during the special session, although the changes made this session will be more major than those. As far as legislative priorities with an impact on municipalities go, housing is very big. I think they'll throw some money at it. They don't have much money to throw at it. They lost $300 million because of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act at the federal level. And so they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. They're looking at various ways to raise revenue. They've put a new fee on people sending money out of the country. Well, that's not all the way through the process, but I think it will go all the way through the process, and various other things. But anyway, I think they'll come up with a certain amount of money for housing. But the league has done a very good job with persuading the legislature not to take over zoning like they have done in some other states. They call themselves the League Army, and they mobilize to lobby on bills they find important. I'll talk about a couple of those. Property tax has been another big focus. There have been at least 25 bills. Chris mentioned one in his staff report, HB 161, that was a bill with a constitutional resolution that would have had to go to the voters, that would have shifted $400 million of property tax burden from primary residences to commercial properties and secondary residences. However, business pushed back very hard, and the sponsor has abandoned that bill. So that bill is dead. There are a couple of bills that would have put a 5% cap on property tax increases by cities and towns, but I think that provision is mostly dead. That provision in Senate Bill 97 is going away. The sponsor acknowledged that in the committee hearing, and I don't think it will survive in House Bill 449 either because of the impact on bond ratings. State and local governments have high bond ratings in Utah because they have flexibility in raising money to pay bonds back. Putting a cap on property tax affects that flexibility, and so it affects bond ratings, which then affects the price at which you can borrow money. And so anything that affects bond ratings is nuclear at the Capitol. So I don't think that 5% cap will survive. Speaking of House Bill 449, which it puts limits on the state as well as on local governments, and it requires excess revenues to be returned to taxpayers. There's a maxim that the legislature will never put limits on itself, so I think that House Bill 449 is unlikely to pass. To continue talking about bills Chris mentioned in his staff report, HB 184 is kind of a propose your own zoning bill. It would allow someone to bring a small zone to the town and propose it without changing all of the zoning for that area. The league lobbied heavily against it when it came up in committee. It was held in committee, and though the sponsor is trying very hard to bring it back, I don't think it will succeed unless he can come up with something that makes it okay with the league. I'll mention one other problematic bill. If the town wants dollars from the state for water infrastructure, they would have to charge a fee, and it's a high fee, 3% of the median AGI times the number of connections. I can't remember what Cottonwood Heights said it would be, but it was in the millions. That fee is not dedicated to the system, but goes statewide. That's going to be a very high fee for you. And further, though it's voluntary for the first few years, after 2031, every system would have to pay it. The league is fighting that bill hard as well, and they have a pretty good track record. At a minimum, I think the fee will become more reasonable. To finish up on bills, I think I'll talk about one that just came out today. That's SB 284, local land use modifications. A couple of provisions in it are interesting. One is it requires the town council to make a decision on a proposed land use regulation if the planning commission doesn't do it in a timely manner. And second, it prohibits the council from acting as an appeal authority. It makes a number of other changes, and I don't know the fate of everything in this bill, but from what those I've talked to today, the provision saying the council can't be the appeal authority is likely to make it through. So that's kind of the way things stand at this point, and things can change. Things do change rapidly. I can talk about the WUI bill if you're interested in that. That was the one that said that you couldn't, it would have eviscerated your landscaping ordinance, but we got it changed. So anyway, that's what I have for you, unless you have questions.
Carolyn or Greg?
The statewide water use fee has been a topic for a little while now. There was a big study where utility providers told the state what their needs were, what their budget needs were over some period of time, and it came back with $70 billion in unfunded needs across the state. And the league's been presenting on this likely bill in LPC meetings for months. It just came out the other day. It made me think differently about getting an application into the state. Like if this doesn't go through this session due to opposition, or if it's watered down, we might want to apply for state funding, which I think I've heard of state revolving loans or similar awards at like 1% interest recently, like in the past 6 months. So yes, before it gets any harder to do, because you can't that's less than inflation, right? Substantially less than inflation. So anyway.
Well, something that's pegged on AGI would be really heavy for us.
It could be. Say I found those numbers lower, like according to the Census Bureau, lower than I would anticipate.
Really?
But I haven't looked in a little while, so.
Just a comment, which is, given our earlier discussion about the probability of doing a bond issuance and then funded by property tax, I feel better after you went through this stuff than I did when I read Chris's memo. I have to admit I panicked a bit. But if anything changes, please let us know as soon as possible.
Well, and Shelley is such a good ear to the ground. She has a lot of experience on the Hill. And in talking to Shelley and in hearing the director of the league, the legislative policy committee, talk about some of these property tax bills, I think the water use fee may fall into a similar category where the legislature identifies big problems, real or according to the legislature, and they come up with big solutions, big pieces of legislation that may not be super well thought out. And so sometimes those things just the spaghetti hits the wall and it falls right off. And to be swept into the landfill, but sometimes it just takes a couple sessions. So
right.
I don't know, the league and Shelley would know better than me, but some of those things that were just they've collapsed into their own weight, to use Cameron Deal's line from an LBC meeting recently. They're too big to go through, but they might get whittled down and the principle might survive in a future session. So I think it's helpful just to have this stuff in the horizon.
Yes, that's very true. Things like the water fee, I can see that surviving in some form, but probably not this session. It just takes a little while to socialize things and get all the stakeholders to the table and make them acceptable.
Yeah, it's the Elise Morgan observation of our town.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you mentioned several times the league, who it's terrific to have those essentially as our defenders. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, they work very hard.
Any questions of Shelley? Okay, Shelley, well, keep your teeth sharp in case you have to learn to attack on.
I file them every night.
Out of way. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's see, we skipped over Lindsay.
Hello.
Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, thank you.
Where would you like me? I can stand here and speak with you. I have slides that I'll project.
Okay, yeah, that's the kind of a conventional spot.
Let me get this.
With respect to John Arthur, who's now have the seat that Galen had, I've asked him to come speak to us, and after the session, I'm sure he will.
Okay, hello everyone.
Hello.
Many of you know me. My name is Lindsay Nielsen. I'm the director of the Central Wasatch Commission, and I'm here today to talk with you all, just to have some face time. About every year, the CWC, we like to visit each of our member jurisdictions to introduce ourselves to the new council members and tell you all about what we're currently up to and how it benefits you individually as the town of Alta. So that's what I'm here to do. And yeah, I have a formal slide deck and everything, but this is an informal conversation. So if there's any questions, just ask, no problem. Okay, so, it's just, okay, that's. This CWC, and forgive me, this will be redundant for some of you, but for the people who this isn't redundant for, I will go through this slide. So what is the Central Wasatch Commission? We are an intergovernmental entity, so that's essentially a government composed of other government entities. We were created in 2017 by interlocal agreement, and the CWC grew out of the community collaborative Mountain Accord effort that culminated in 2015. Okay, so we know the Mountain Accord Charter called for many things to happen. One of the things it called to happen is the creation of a government entity to carry out the directives in the charter, the Mountain Accord Charter. So that's the CWC. So, yeah, so we were created by Interlocal in 2017. We were staffed up in 2018. Turns out creating a government from the ground up takes a long time. So, you know our old friend Ralph Becker, he was the original executive director, and I came on as communications director in 2018, and now I'm the executive director. So I've been here a long time. And what's the point of the CWC? Like I said, we were created to carry out the directives of the Mountain Accord, and those are varied. So they the 4 tenets of Mountain Accord were economy, transportation, recreation, and environment. Okay, and so those are our founding and our guiding our guideposts, and we achieve attention to each of those guideposts with a number of projects that I'll tell you about. Okay. Before we get to our project work, these are our member jurisdictions. So as I said, yeah, that's kind of small, but that's
No worries.
Yeah, so our member jurisdictions, we're a commission made up of other governments, so Salt Lake City, Summit County, Town of Alta, Sandy City, Park City, Mill Creek, Cottonwood Heights, City of Holiday is new this year. We have a number of, and Brighton, Town of Brighton, of course. We have 3 ex officio members, High Valley Transit, the new transit district servicing Park City and Summit County, UTA, of course, and Metro Water. Our 2 special advisors are Solitude Mountain Resort. Solitude is represented by Amber Broadway, and they represent the economy system of the Central Wasatch Mountains on our board. And Saber Canyons, Jack Stiles, he represents the environment and the recreation system of the Central Wasatch Mountains. Okay. member jurisdiction, broad member jurisdiction benefits. So the CWC largely, our approach to issues are consensus based. And so that means that Mayor Burton, who is the Town of Alta commissioner, along with his fellow commissioners, approach the issues of the Central Wasatch Mountains and the issues that you are acutely facing here in the town of Alta as one of the two jurisdictions right in the middle of all of the quagmire of issues in the Central Wasatch. We approach those issues collectively. So we put our collective brain power together to approach those issues, and that's the ethos at the CWC. Together, then separate is how we approach things. Okay, so yeah, so what do we approach? Land and watershed protection, decision making, transportation approach and issues. We have a short-term project improvements program. That's our short-term projects grant program, which I'll tell you about in a second. Our Central Wasatch Dashboard, which is this incredible resource that is free to anyone who wants to access it. And what you find on that dashboard is information about these mountains right here. So there are live webcams. Actually, the Our Lady of the Snow webcam is on our dashboard. So if you guys know what's happening with
Did you know that?
But you can see what the air quality is like with those live webcams. You can see what the traffic counts are at various traffic counter locations in these mountains. You can see things like the number of moose in the canyon, what kind of snake you almost ran over on your mountain bike. Speaking from experience, you can find that on it was terrible. Yeah, you can find all that information on the dashboard. In addition to that, we provide the forum for regional stakeholder involvement. Okay. Town of Alta specific benefits. So this is probably intuitive to you all, but this is my yearly chance to remind you all of what benefits you reap as a member of the Central Wasatch Commission. So again, the CWC is a really unique organization. Not many organizations exist anywhere in the country. We provide a forum for collaboration and for an exchange of ideas, essentially cross-canyon collaborations with your jurisdictional neighbors. Without the CWC, you really wouldn't have that opportunity. Direct access to collective group advocacy efforts for water and land protections. That's embodied by our efforts to advocate for our federal legislation, or CWNCRA, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then innovative platform for complex transportation discussions and solutions. Okay. We, like I said earlier, that we were created in 2017 by ILA. In our ILA, it also dictates that we have a stakeholders council. And so what our stakeholders council is it's a member advisory group of 35 people who have the experience and then on the ground knowledge of what's happening here in the Central Wasatch Mountains. So that the membership of our stakeholders council includes all 4 of the ski resorts, folks like Wasatch Mountain Club, the League of Women Voters, Log Haven, we've got CCF, we've got Green Latinos, the list goes on and on. Okay. And then relatively newer is we created a youth council. It's essentially the same as our stakeholders council, except for young people. What we were finding at our stakeholders council is it was great. It was full of people who had years of experience and knowledge of these mountains, but not a lot of young voices. We're at the stakeholders council, so we said, okay, we will create something instead of asking the youth to come to the youth or to the stakeholders council. We will bring the youth council to the youth. So that's what we've done here, and they're really impressive. They've completed a number of really important projects. They submit short-term project grant applications, which is a really good experience for these young people to learn how to write grants and think through the mechanics of a project. And they were awarded two grants last year, one for a gear shed, a community gear shed, which is essentially like a gear library. You can rent out for free gear, outdoor gear that can be pretty exclusive, like pretty expensive for young people. So skis, ski boots, climbing shoes, ropes, etc. And that was all the youth council. They came up with that idea and they ran it, and it's going great. That's all them. Very proud of them.
What's the demographic? What's the ceiling on who's a youth and?
You don't qualify.
Definitely don't qualify. Yeah, 27, I dyed my hair white.
It's for ages 16 to 30. We call 29-year-olds and 30-year-old youth.
Okay. Just wondered.
Yeah.
In this community, that's, yeah.
Yeah. So in addition to our board that we've talked about, our stakeholders council and our youth council, we're getting into our project work now. We, like I said, 4 tenets: economy, transportation, recreation, environment. Our transportation work is really vast. Over the years, we've had the opportunity to initiate a number of projects for these canyons, including the mountain transportation system project work that Town of Alta was involved in, the Big Cottonwood Canyon Mobility Action Plan that was released in 2023. We just barely completed a Mill Creek Canyon shuttle feasibility study update. And then we fund and operate in conjunction with other partners like UTA and Sandy City PD, the Ski Bus Priority Access Program, which directly benefits Town of Alta here. And then we submit comments on when invited. So like the Mill Creek Flap Grant comment, the Little Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Impact Statement comment, our EA comment that we just submitted, our Kimball Junction comment that we just submitted, things like this. Okay. Okay, so the Ski Bus Priority Access Program, this program is wildly successful and it has direct benefit to Little Cottonwood Canyon and Town of Alta. This was initiated in 2020 and it's a really good example of the CWC doing what it was created to do, which is find creative solutions to really tough problems. So we know on canyon closure days that the traffic congestion at the mouth of the canyon on Wasatch Boulevard is just a mess. It's crazy. It's wild. And so in 2020, the CWC got together with some partners at UDOT, UTA, Sandy City, and Cottonwood Heights, and we said, what can we do? And this is what we came up with, the Ski Bus Priority Access Program. And it, like I said, it's wildly successful, not controversial at all, facilitates orderly traffic down there. And what it does is the police move traffic such that the ski bus, the UTA ski bus, is prioritized. They get first tracks. So that that incentivizes transit use, reducing cars on the road, and it allows people who live on Wasatch Boulevard to get in and out of their homes, which they previously were not able to do with that traffic there. So that's this program, very, very successful. Our dashboard, I won't spend a ton of time on this unless there's questions. It's online for you to access. It's updated, so it's like evergreen and relevant. And this is an ongoing project that we have in partnership with the experts at the University of Utah. Okay. And then our symposium. So our symposium is new to our portfolio of work at the CWC. So 2026 was the second year that we've hosted the Central Wasatch Symposium. And basically what the symposium stands to be is a distillation of the work of the CWC down into 2 days. So there's gathering, there's an exchange of ideas, there are talks from experts on topics ranging from those 4 foundational topics that I mentioned. I'll mention again, you'll get so sick of hearing it: transportation, environment, economy, and recreation. Okay. This year, first year, we had Terry Tempest Williams as our keynote and speaker. Over 250 people attended. Second year, we had Shoshone Elder Darren Perry speak as our keynote speaker. He was excellent. He brought, but actually Terry Tempest and Darren Perry both brought people to tears. And then what followed were 2 days of learning from experts about everything happening in the Wasatch. So if you haven't had a chance to attend the symposium next year, please do. It's incredible. Yes.
I didn't get to go, I didn't go the first. You go both days?
Yes.
I went on both days. I went the first day, the mayor was there both days. I thought it was like the most relevant, sort of, conference type event to the town of Alta and to Alta. It was the most relevant conference I've ever been to, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Like it was 2 days of immersion in the stuff.
When is the next one?
The way that the Wasatch Mountains work. Yeah, right. I thought it was so cool.
Thank you, Chris. That's like really wonderful to hear. Thank you for saying that and for attending, taking the time, all of you taking the time. I know 2 days is a long time to take out of your schedule to attend, but I think it's pretty fun and worth it. So yeah, the next one, the dates, council is the first or second week of January every year. We haven't set the 2027 dates yet, but yeah, mark your calendars.
We can't.
Yeah, we can.
Well, mark your entire first and second week of January, okay? Short-term project grant program, I'll be kind of quick, as I've been speaking for a while, so. The CWC hosts a grant program where we fund, since 2020, when the grant program started, we funded nearly 300,000, maybe more, I don't know the exact number, of helping projects that are already started get over the finish line. So the goal with this grant program is to identify work happening in these canyons that need a little bit of monetary assistance to get over the finish line, okay? So we funded things like the maintenance of trailhead bathrooms here in Little Cottonwood Canyon and across the Tri-Canyons. We support Friends of Alta's Junior Ranger activity, but we fully fund it some years. The maintenance of aging fixed rock anchor hardware on plant climbing routes across the Wasatch. I'm personally proud of that one because, gosh, you don't want to mess around with anchor hardware when you're climbing. Yeah, we fund Saturday Backcountry Ski Shuttle in partnership with WBA. We fully fund the abatement of the removal of graffiti tags across the Wasatch and so on and so forth. There's a lot of good stuff that we do through this grant program. Okay, and then last but certainly not least, our cornerstone project for the Central Wasatch Commission is this piece of congressional legislation. It's called the Central Wasatch National Conservation and Recreation Area Act. The most recent version of the NCRA, the CWNCRA, is 2021. Mayor Burke, along with his fellow commissioners, have directed staff to kind of get the band back together, so to speak, with the NCRA and see if we can't modernize it and redraft it this year or next. And who is anyone unfamiliar with the CWNCRA? No? Okay, I'm gonna be redundant anyway. So the CWNCRA would do a number of things. It would place permanent protections on the land, the water, the flora, the fauna here. It would facilitate transportation solutions and then also find pathways for concentrated development here. Okay, so it's really a holistic approach to the issues of these mountains. Okay? And in my opinion, it's our last holistic chance to address the issues. It's my job to advocate for this legislation, but that's truly what I believe. So, yeah. Okay, so we made it. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. Are there any questions?
Well, I'll make a statement. I think that we're getting our money's worth.
Love to hear it. Thank you so much.
And I would add, one thing about the CWC, and the background in Mount Accord. And, you know, Mount Accord, when I started at the town, when I was working with Jen at FOA, Mount Accord was happening. And Mount Accord grew out of another process. It was sort of, Mount Accord was this sort of like consultant driven, well branded and marketed project. But the town was not initially at the table in what I believe was called the Mountain Transportation Summit or something like that. There was an effort preliminary to Mountain Accord where the town was not initially at the table, despite, and the objective was significantly to make progress on transportation improvements in Lower Cotton Canyon. And it was, the legend has it, it was the mayor, then mayor of Park City, who stuck up for us and said we need to be at the table. But so I just offer that as evidence that like it seems only logical that we would be members of the CWC when we'd be at the table when they're talking about, you know, pieces of legislation like that, everything that CWC does. But it's not a given. So so yes, to me, I think participation is essential for the town. Yeah.
Anything else for Lindsay?
Did you say that you clean the bathrooms at the end of Little Cotton Candy? So you're gonna continue that project?
Not her personally.
No, but I thought that's what, like, the first thing on your, didn't you say that?
Yeah, so yes, so we are not the boots on the ground, we're an administrative organization, but what that specifically is, we facilitate the coordination of and the partnership amongst the many organizations who do, and we have streamlined the process, so we manage the contract with the cleaners. If you have, let me know if you have.
Well, it's just interesting because the builder of a bunch of stuff at Alta is donating these toilets, and right, isn't it up for like who's gonna maintain the toilets?
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of a funny thing that like that's the first thing she mentioned, and I was like, oh wow, well, this is like a
Right.
collaborative project. Not that that was like exactly what it's for, but it is an interesting way to perhaps advertise for everyone if they're coming in the bathroom, this is maintained by whatever.
No, I love this, this is exactly the point, yeah, this is exactly the point. Great.
It's helped in the background too.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, obviously.
Any questions from whatever?
I was on the committee for Mountain Accord, for the recreation committee for Mountain Accord. So I've seen this process evolve quite a bit since then, and I'm really glad that we're part of the CWC, and it's been great.
Thanks, Elise.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And spending time up here.
I brought the snow for you guys.
Yeah, we'll come back again.
Every day for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Next item is approval of the January 14th town council meeting minutes. February staff and financial reports, and I move that we approve all of these.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, done. Are there any questions concerning the departmental reports? No, okay, no questions. All right, how about new business?
I do too.
Or go?
Nice,
One is, I heard a number of about confusion over parking. I think a lot of it, frankly, can be cleared up by signage and a few things like that. But I do think we probably want to think about how to clean up some of that stuff and hopefully do something, maybe this summer. The second one is actually partially prompted by what you said, Roger, about the learning lessons from Feynman, but also by the fraud assessment risk score. I'm not worried about fraud. tell you what I'm petrified over, which is cybersecurity. And you guys may or may not know that I'm involved with two different cybersecurity companies. So I consider the people I hang out with reasonably educated in this stuff. And one of them got hacked. And in fact, and the outsourced accountant actually paid the bill. Which, because we're reasonably au fait on this stuff, we were able to retract before they actually money went, but they retracted it. Anyway, what's the point? The point is, because of AI, cybersecurity is getting very treacherous. And with all due respect to the state of Utah, the training stuff that they've got us doing is about 10 years out of date, maybe more. And I think we may need to do some simple things over the next year, things like require a password manager for everybody in the town, and frankly, the whole town council, because that's where a lot of penetrations happen. And when we're getting to the point of where AI can fake Roger's voice and you won't be able to tell, and that's here today, by the way. This stuff is gonna get darn scary, so just wanna raise it as something I think we need to take a closer look at and probably do some efforts around it, yeah.
But we're moving in the right direction.
Can they take my fingerprint?
Yeah. In your face.
Or retinal scan.
Wow. Okay, well, with that, cheery note.
Tell me good news.
Any other new business? All right, we've already had our input from Shelley, discussion. Does anyone feel we need a closed meeting
The closed meetings for,
for any topic that's authorized by the Utah Code Section 50, etc.?
We don't recommend one.
Okay, all right, good. All right, in that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
seconded.
All in favor? Yes.
Yes.
That.
6 o'clock.
Hi, everyone.
Goodbye,
Bye.
please. Actually. We're.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Yeah, no, something late. It was programmed for.
Oh,
Oh, yes. Wow.
So.
That was a great story.